Well, there's a few risks that INFJs are exposed to in love relationships, of course. One that I talked about not that long ago was the nurse syndrome, right? And in that video that I recorded at the time, where I exposed and explained the INFJ nurse syndrome, the particular version of the nurse syndrome, seen through the prism of INFJ-ness, we could understand that the nurse syndrome is not just about wanting to repair someone, right? It's not about wanting to repair someone because the INFJ has a kind of savior complex, right? That's only the simple kind of boiled down version, but there is a much more complex dynamic mechanism at play. That involves certain ego mechanisms that are formed and crystallized in early childhood, particularly omnipotence, and the various mechanisms of the depressive position, to quote the psychoanalyst Melanie Klein, particularly reparative guilt. If this is a little bit confusing, I encourage you to check my video on the nurse syndrome, okay? Because I don't want to focus on the nurse syndrome, even though it is a real risk in INFJ relationships, and it tends to create codependency. It can create toxic bonds that are hard to get out of. You may miss on other opportunities that are much better for you, and so forth and so on. The one I want to discuss today is kind of, it's a bit more specific, but it's actually prevalent enough, I think, because NI dominants, particularly those that are aware that they're NI dominant, are often likely to end up in relationships with other NI dominants. Perhaps more than any other type, you see INFJs really interested in being in romantic relationships with other INFJs, sometimes INTJs, right? What I'm going to be talking about is even more of a risk in INFJ relationships, and there are many such relationships. Now, I've done videos on INFJ relationships, and I've talked about how it can be really beautiful and powerful, because of course, in some way, there is also nothing more exciting, nothing more of a source of desire, motivation, and just joy, pure ecstatic joy, than to feel oneself understood so profoundly by another person, and feeling as if you're looking at the world through the same lens. And there's something really strong about that, you know. So INFJ relationships can certainly be really empowering, but there is a risk that is quite specific to them. And like I said, also to some degree, because of the shared NI dominance in INFJ relationships. And that is narcissistic love. Narcissistic love is a real risk in INFJ relationships and INFJ relationships, because narcissistic love, which is quite common, right? It's more common in adolescence. Let's say in adolescence, it's common, and it's not, I want to say it's not pathological, because adolescents learn about relationships, and it's quite common in adolescence to be convinced that you're absolutely in love with someone, and in fact you're loving yourself and your own traits through the other person. You're projecting and introjecting in a kind of cycle, until you kind of learn what selfless love is, real love, not narcissistic love. And most people go through at least a couple of narcissistic loves. You know, it's not the exclusive privilege, so to speak, of narcissistic people. narcissistic love, is really something. It's about, usually it happens when someone doesn't have like a very developed self-esteem and is really looking for a way of their self-esteem to be fixed, and they find that fix in relationships where the other person seems to echo themselves back to them. And it's really tricky because you can really feel like love. You can feel longing, you can feel, certainly attraction. Often narcissistic love is a bit more obsessive than real love. It can involve limerence for sure, but often limerence, maybe always in fact, is something that is not mutual. It's something outside relationships, like erotomania. But you can see that in relationships too. Both parts are actually in their own worlds, loving themselves through the other. And that's narcissistic love. And narcissistic love is not satisfying. It also creates dependency. It's unstable, and it usually precludes the possibility of really envisaging real love, including real love that would actually pull people out of their prolonged cycles of low self-esteem, only artificially reinforced through the narcissistic love relationship. Because the instability of the narcissistic love relationship keeps kind of, creating the illusion that the self-esteem is enhanced and then crushing it again. And unconsciously, people who are stuck in those cycles feel like they aren't worthy of better, but they're not conscious of that most of the time. So it's a real danger, and INFJs are exposed to that risk perhaps more than any other type, because, like I said, they're perhaps more than any other type more likely to look for INFJs. Of course, INFJ relationships expose you to the risk of a narcissistic type of love relationships. And also because INFJs have this trait often that I don't easily trust people who are not anti-dominants to understand them, because they tend to have such a long history of being pervasively and wholeheartedly misunderstood by pretty much everyone around them, starting from their own parents, which is the original act of misunderstanding that defines a lot of their emotional and psychic life, including psychic issues, psychic challenges afterwards, and for the remainder of their existence, even when they go through a phase of spiritualization, as some INFJs do. So narcissistic love, it's very much something that can happen to INFJs, and it's perhaps actually more of a danger to INFJs than to any other type. Let me know in the comments what you thought, guys. I know this topic is challenging, but hopefully that was enlightening. Don't forget my latest book on the INFJ, The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World. Get it at the link below, as well as the prequel, the book called The Ecstatic Soul, first book in the Soul series, which is still, to this day, the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind. Link below, get the book. And don't forget, guys, I could not do this without you. I need you more than ever. Just to consider supporting me on Patreon. For a small amount every month, you get access to our Discord server and bonus video content on a topic of your choice every 2-3 weeks. And perhaps most importantly, you support my work and you become a part of our community. I appreciate you so much. Talk to you soon. Take care. See you tomorrow.